podcast of and for the people, the greatest football podcast on earth, Francamente. My name is Franca, I'm your host, and I'm so grateful for each and every one of you. Are you ready to bias your football content? Let's go. Hola a todos y bienvenidos al podcast de y para el pueblo, el mejor podcast de la tierra, Francamente. Me llamo Franca, soy la presentadora y estoy muy agradecida por todos y cada uno de ustedes. ¿Están listos para prejuiciar su contenido de fútbol? ¡Vamos! Hey y'all! I'm cracking up because I just translated the intro into Spanish on the fly. But I think since the last time we did a bilingual episode, I think I've come up with how to say bias your football content, which is turning prejuicio into a verb, prejuiciar. So I'm so excited. Hola, estoy tan emocionada. Tenemos otro episodio bilingüe. Al fin pude traducir mi frase icónica, bias your football content. Decidí hacer un verbo de la palabra prejuicio. Creo que es la mejor manera de hacerlo. Entonces ahí tenemos tagline también en español. ¿Cómo están? ¿Cómo están? Estoy tan feliz y tan agradecida. Estamos haciendo otro episodio bilingüe, nuestro segundo episodio bilingüe. Y hoy vamos a hacer otro episodio de análisis literario. We're doing another literary analysis episode because it's time. It's been time. It's just that, life kept having us, forcing us to talk about topics, which we'll get back to, obviously. But I've been missing the literary analysis piece. That episode, our last Galeano episode, by the way, that was episode 9. Go check it out. It's our most watched. It's our highest numbers episode. I think because it reaches a wide audience. I think Real Francamente in general reaches a wide audience of people that aren't necessarily football fans or that aren't necessarily, that don't necessarily know too much about it, but they're drawn to the content anyway. And I think this is one of those episodes that kind of got us there. Es nuestro segundo episodio sobre Galeano, con análisis literario de la obra brillante de Galeano. Y nuestro primer episodio sobre de análisis de Galeano fue el episodio 9. Así que si no lo escucharon, escúchenlo. Es nuestro episodio con más ¿cómo se dice? Público, con más personas que escucharon, ¿no? Y que vieron en YouTube. Entonces, vayan a escuchar si no lo escucharon. Go check it out if you haven't. Episode 9 for the kind of like intro to Soccer and Sun and Shadow, which is the greatest football book of all time, the greatest sports book of all time. And it's exciting. It's exciting to be doing this again. We're going to get through the book, whenever we feel like doing a Galeano episode, we'll do it. We'll probably do another 3 vignettes today. Vamos a analizar el libro brillante de Galeano, que es el mejor libro de fútbol de la historia de la literatura, porque no es solo sobre el fútbol. Galeano y fútbol a sol y sombra es una de nuestras inspiraciones para este podcast, ¿no? Es la mezcla y la inclusión del fútbol dentro de un contexto histórico, político y de justicia social. This book is literally one of like our guiding forces when it comes to our philosophy at Real Francamente and what we do and everything. And so again, listen to episode 9 for like more of the intro piece on what fútbol sol y sombra, what soccer and shadow is. But just know that it's like our guiding philosophy at Real Francamente, and I'm so happy to continue to analyze it. So one of the most beautiful things about Galeano, and I've been using a lot of Galeano in my classes that I've been teaching. I teach Latin American studies and African American studies. And in both of them, it's relevant. His works are relevant. And one of my favorite things about Galeano is the way he writes vignettes and the way he writes nonfiction, right? These are called vignettes because they're really, really short for the most part. He writes nonfiction in a way that feels like literature. It is literature, but it feels like fiction. It feels like it's so literary, it's poetic, it's gorgeous, it's beautiful, right? I'm getting distracted by my hair. If you're watching on YouTube. Oh, I have to talk about my kit. But let me finish my thought. So he writes beautiful literature, beautiful poetic, vignettes that even though it's not fiction, and it makes us really enter this like literary space and literary world. Lo que me gusta más de Galeano, y he estado usando muchas viñetas de Galeano en mis clases. Soy profesora de estudios latinoamericanos y estudios afro y afroamericanos. Y para los dos departamentos es súper relevante el trabajo de Galeano, y una de las cosas que me gusta más y que a los estudiantes les gusta más es la habilidad de él de escribir, mientras que no es ficción, lo escribe en una manera hermosa, literaria, poética, que nos sentimos que estamos leyendo literatura. O sea, es literatura, no es ficción, es literatura, pero se siente como que estamos leyendo o una novela o un poema, lo escribe de una manera súper linda. Tengo que hablar de mi camiseta. So my kit, what am I wearing today? If you're watching on YouTube, I'm wearing an old school Boca kit. Boca Juniors just got to the final of the Libertadores. I'm not sure if by the time this drops, the games will have been played, or the game, I forget if it's a 1 or 2 legs for the final. Anyway, old school Boca kit, just like classic blue and gold and yellow. Check it out on YouTube if you're not watching on YouTube currently, because it's worth it. I'm trying to get another Boca kit. Last season they had a really awesome classic throwback one that didn't have a sponsor, and I'm really trying to get my hands on that one. It's clean. It's an homage to Diego. So that one is the goal, but I'll wear my Boca kits in the meantime. Es una camiseta de Boca, bien medio vintage, medio antigua, cuando usaban Nike. Y es la clásica azul y amarilla. Estoy tratando de conseguir la del año pasado, que no tenía sponsor y era bien clásica, era como un homenaje a Diego. Necesito esa camiseta. Si no están mirando en YouTube, vayan a YouTube a ver mi camiseta, que es lo que hacemos todos los episodios. Es parte de lo divertido, es ver qué camiseta tengo, y todavía no he repetido, y todavía no voy a repetir por mucho tiempo. Así que sí, estamos con Galeano. We're here with Galeano. And we're going to start, I'm kind of going a little bit in order. So, but the English version and the Spanish version are different, a little bit in the order. So, I'm just kind of going to pick 3 vignettes and read them and then analyze them. So we'll read the vignette in English, analyze it in English, read the vignette in Spanish, analyze it in Spanish. All right. So that is the structure. Are you ready? Here we go. This one's called The Idol. And one fine day, the goddess of the wind kisses the foot of man, that mistreated, scorned foot. And from that kiss, the soccer idol is born. He is born in a straw crib, in a tin roof shack, and he enters the world clinging to a ball. From the moment he learns to walk, he knows how to play. In his early years, he brings joy to the sandlots, plays like crazy in the back alleys of the slum until night falls and you can't see the ball. And in his early manhood, he takes flight and the stadiums fly with him. His acrobatic art draws multitudes, Sunday after Sunday, from victory to victory, ovation to ovation. The ball seeks him out, knows him, needs him. She rests and rocks on the top of his foot. He caresses and makes her speak. And in that tete-a-tete, millions of mutes converse. The nobodies, those condemned to always be nobodies, feel like they are somebodies for a moment by virtue of those 1-2 passes, those dribbles that draw Z's on the grass, those incredible backheel goals or overhead volleys. When he plays, the team has 12 players. 12? It has 15. 20. The ball laughs, radiant in the air. He brings her down, puts her to sleep, showers her with compliments, dances with her, and seeing such things never before seen, his admirers pity their unborn grandchildren who will never see them. But an idol is an idol for only a moment, a human eternity, all of nothing. And when the time comes for the golden foot to become a lame duck, the star will have completed his journey from star to blackout. His body has more patches than a clown suit. And by now, the acrobat is a cripple, the artist a beast of a burden. Not with your clodhoppers. The fountain of public adulation becomes the lightning rod of public rancor. You mummy. Sometimes the idol doesn't fall all at once. And sometimes when he breaks, people devour the pieces. Wow. So much relevance to so much stuff. Okay, for starters, there's a couple problematic words in this. I'm reading it as is, and like words that we don't really use in English or anymore. This is an old book. It's an old translation, and it's, we kind of honor the words that are used while also acknowledging that we would use different words today. But it's so amazing. First of all, the number one, like the number one thing that comes to mind is like the fickleness of humans who are fans, right, of anything, because the number one thing this makes me think of is stan culture and that obsession we have with celebrities, right, where, and like each other and like people, whatever, content creators, which actually is connected to the way we will so quickly turn on them when we realize they're just humans just like us. I've talked at length about cancel culture, idolizing, not putting people on pedestals, stan culture, all that stuff, cancel culture and stan culture. But it's just so beautiful the way he's able to write this in such a way where we really like do understand, like and this is a problem that I always call out when we talk about players, when we talk about coaches, okay? And we call, for example, for the sacking of the coach immediately, or like players, are great while they're good. And then when they're, the second they make a mistake, it's like constant hate and trolling, right, that they get, especially on socials. And I'm also thinking of things like the hypocrisy of as racism comes into play, the way that we love, for example, a Black player in these colonized nations. I'm thinking of France initially, right? But like it happens everywhere. We love a Black player in a colonized nation as long as they're doing their job, right? But the second anything happens, if they have a bad game, if they have, any sort of thing like that, abandoned, right? And on top of that, racist abuse. So it's just so beautiful because while it was written a while ago, hey, Luna's here. She's here. She's ready to help us analyze literature. While 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 everything's good, everything's great. She distracted me. But then, it takes so little for us to, to just like turn on these players and like who idolize them. Because one of the things, speaking of Boca, speaking of Maradona, right? Excuse me. One of the things that I think is so interesting about the way the idol is talked about in this vignette, and just in general, is the way, like, who makes the idol be an idol? It's not himself, right? Like, there's many people that wish they could turn themselves into an idol and can't, because it's the people and it's the fans and it's your talent. In some cases, it's your whatever the thing is, okay, that turns you into an idol. It's outside of you. You don't make yourself an idol. The people make you an idol, right? And so, like, just like that, the people can also take that status away. And it's so sad. And it's like, so, it's such like a human nature thing. I also love the way he personifies the ball. Okay. I mean, la pelota in Spanish is Spanish is a gendered language. So la pelota is female, it's feminine. And that, translated over, but I just love the personification of it, of the ball, and how we're seeing it like kind of come to life, right? And it's drawn to his foot. The part where we're talking about 12 players is also relevant, as I'm wearing a Boca kit, because La Doce is the name of the group of fans, like Boca fans are called are part of like the 12th player, right? Which is frequently how we talk about fans. So it's interesting that he has that reference in there. But it's so good, and it's extra good because it's so concise and it gets so much across in such a short time. That's the beauty of vignettes. I love a vignette. I love a galeano work any size, any length, but his vignettes are my favorite. So yeah, that's the idol. We're gonna switch to Spanish now. Okay, vamos a leer esta viñeta que se llama El ídolo. Y un buen día, la diosa del viento besa el pie del hombre, el maltratado, el despreciado pie, y de ese beso nace el ídolo del fútbol. Nace en cuna de paja y choza de lata, y viene al mundo abrazado a una pelota. Desde que aprende a caminar, sabe jugar. En sus años tempranos alegra los potreros. Juega que te juega en los adurriales de los suburbios hasta que cae la noche y ya no se ve la pelota. Y en sus años mozos, vuela y hace volar en los estadios. Sus artes malabares convocan multitudes, domingo tras domingo, de victoria en victoria, de ovación en ovación. La pelota lo busca, lo reconoce, lo necesita. En el pecho de su pie, ella descansa y se hamaca. Él le saca lustre y la hace hablar. Y en esa charla de dos conversan millones de mudos. Los nadies, los condenados a ser por siempre nadies, pueden sentirse alguienes por un rato, por obra y gracia de esos pases devueltos al toque. Esas gambetas que dibujan setas en el césped. Esos golazos de taquito de chilena. Cuando juega él, el cuadro tiene 12 jugadores. ¿12? 15 tiene, 20. La pelota ríe, radiante en el aire. Él la baja, la duerme, la piropea, la baila. Y viendo esas cosas jamás vistas, sus adoradores sienten piedad por sus nietos aún no nacidos que no las verán. Pero el ídolo es ídolo por un rato nomás. Humana eternidad, cosa de nada. Y cuando al pie del otro le llega la hora, cuando al pie de oro le llega la hora de la mala pata, la estrella ha concluido su viaje. Desde el fulgor hasta el apagón. Está ese cuerpo con más remiendos que traje de payaso. Y ya el acróbata es un paralítico, el artista una bestia. Con la herradura no. La fuente de la felicidad pública se convierte en el pararrayos del público rencor. Momia. A veces el ídolo no cae entero. Y a veces, cuando se rompe, la gente devora los pedazos. Wow. Wow. La, hay tanto para analizar. Primero que me hace pensar mucho en este fenómeno de idolización, no solo de jugadores de fútbol, pero de celebridades, de personas famosas, que tan rápido los ponemos en este estatus tan alto como que son ídolos, y así de rápido también cuando hacen cualquier error, cuando cometen cualquier error, se caen, ¿no? Es la manera que hablamos de jugadores, de entrenadores, cuando los directores técnicos tienen un mal partido, ya es echarlo, ¿no? O lo mismo con los jugadores, si tienen un mal partido, si les pasa algo, si son humanos, ahí es como, pero la plata que le pagamos y no sé qué, y hay que criticar, nos olvidamos que son humanos. Y es interesante el fenómeno porque ocurre, ¿quién es el que hace al ídolo? Por más que quiera, un jugador no se puede idolizar solo si nosotros no lo idolizamos. Entonces, ¿por qué a la misma vez lo culpamos a él por llegar a ese estatus, ¿no? Me hace pensar mucho en eso, en cuán superficial es nuestra relación con estas personas que no conocemos realmente, que creemos que conocemos porque formamos esta relación parasocial, se llama, ¿no? Porque creemos, lo vemos jugar todas las semanas y lo vemos y miramos el contenido en los medios y entonces lo conocemos, ¿no? Personalmente. Y ahí es que entramos como en esta idea de qué es la celebridad, qué significa ser famoso y todo eso. Es súper interesante. También me encanta la personificación de la pelota como una persona, y también especialmente en el femenino. La pelota, el español es una lengua con género, ¿no? Pero es súper interesante. Luna brought a soccer ball. Trajo una pelotita. Oh my gosh. Quiere jugar, sabe que estamos hablando del fútbol. Wow, qué inteligente. She's so smart. Okay. She literally she hasn't played with the soccer ball in so long. It's so cute. Okay. Pero me distraje. Pero sí, es súper interesante la manera en que personifica la pelota como una mujer, como una mujer, ¿no? Y le da elementos humanos. Y también me encanta cuando empieza y dice que nace en cuna de paja, que también es una referencia a la humildad inicial que tienen muchos de los jugadores. Muchos de los jugadores vienen de los lugares más pobres, ¿no? También la idea de los nadies, o sea, tenemos el ídolo en juxtaposición con los nadies, ¿no? Con los que, por esa razón es que nosotros hacemos ídolos, porque en los ídolos nosotros vemos lo que quisiéramos ser, ¿no? Y eso es súper interesante, que Galeano es capaz de abarcar todos estos temas en tan poco espacio, ¿no? And I'm going to go back and say a few things that I just said in Spanish that I didn't say in English. And one is the reference at the beginning to where the idol is born, which is in like poverty, which is where most of the best players in the world come from, you know? And we talk about that a lot as like football as the democratizing sport and all of that. And I think that's brilliant. And also the idea that of like that he brings up of like the juxtaposition of the idol versus the nobodies. Because the reason why people idolize celebrities so much is because they see something in them that they wish they could be. And so a lot of times that is like such an interesting analysis of human nature that we see a lot of the time play out, you know, just by nature. And he's able to convey that in such a short space and without saying so many words, right? Like it's all metaphor. It's all, it's so good. His work is so good. Me encanta este trabajo de Galeano. With that, we're going to go on a little break, and then we'll come back and read a couple more. Vamos a una pausa y volvemos a leer y analizar más de Galeano.
Hey, make sure to follow and subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform so you never miss an episode. And help us out by leaving a rating and review, and remember to share it with a friend. Don't forget to follow Franca on Twitter and Instagram at Francamente for the latest news. And lastly, please visit realfrancamente.com for bonus content, including articles, photos, and for more information about the podcast.
Okay, we are back. Estamos de vuelta. Estamos en un episodio súper intelectual, interesante. Estamos analizando literatura que en realidad es mi favorito, es mi cosa favorita para hacer. My favorite thing to do is analyze literature. So like I love this. I love these episodes. We should have a book club, but like a good type of book club, not like I've been part of some that are not that good. Okay. So we're continuing on, and the next two vignettes are two of my favorites in the whole book. And there's a lot to unpack, so let's get right to it. So the next one's called The Fan. Once a week, the fan flees his house and goes to the stadium. Banners wave, and the air resounds with rattles, firecrackers, and drums. It rains streamers and confetti. The city disappears, its routine forgotten. All that exists is the temple. In this sacred place, the only religion without atheists puts its divinities on display. Although the fan can contemplate the miracle more comfortably on TV, he prefers to make the pilgrimage to this spot where he can see his angels in the flesh doing battle with the demons of the day. Here, the fan shakes his scarf, gulps his saliva, swallows his bile, eats his cap, whispers prayers and curses, and suddenly breaks out in an ovation, leaping like a flea to hug the stranger at his side, cheering the goal. While the pagan mass lasts, The fan is many. Along with thousands of other devotees, he shares the certainty that we are the best, that all referees are crooked, that all the adversaries cheat. Rarely does the fan say, my club plays today. Rather, he says, we play today. He knows it's player number 12 who stirs up the winds of fervor that propel the ball when she falls asleep. Just as the other 11 players know that playing without their fans is like dancing without music. When the game is over, the fan, who has not moved from the stands, celebrates his victory. What a goal we scored. What a beating we gave them. Or he cries over his defeat. They swindled us again. Thief of a referee. And then the sun goes down, and so does the fan. Shadows fall over the emptying stadium. On the concrete, terracing, a few fleeting bonfires burn, while the lights and voices fade. The stadium is left alone, and the fan too returns to his solitude, to the I who had been we. The fan goes off. The crowd breaks up and melts away. And Sunday becomes as melancholy as Ash Wednesday after the death of Carnival. Oh my goodness. There's so much. There's so much there. I mean, look, the comparison of football to a religion is so real, and the way that he's able to continue that reference the entire way by calling it mass, by calling it going to temple, by calling it sacred, right? The only religion without atheists. The only religion without atheists. This is extra relevant because Galeano is Uruguayan, and while this concept applies to many places in Latin America, like in Uruguay and Argentina, interestingly, and this is interesting too because it brings up Carnival, and so like this is not a coincidence that he's bringing this up in conjunction with Carnival, because in places where indigenous communities were entirely wiped out, like is the Rio de la Plata region, those places had to do what's called creating their own myths. Not myths in terms of like a mythical creature or something that's false or fake, but like they had to create their own national myths, their own things to uphold as like, this is what defines us as a nation, because our indigenous communities and cultures were wiped out and we don't have those rituals. Okay. So our rituals become things that in other places or to other people may be just like, silly, or like, popular culture or whatever. Like, oh, it's just a sport. It's not just a sport. Not in Uruguay, not in Argentina, and not in many other places, but there is that relevance of the connection to Carnival, especially as it pertains to the study of, popular culture phenomena in these spaces. So the fact that literally, the way that he brilliantly captures the fact that we genuinely are the team, right? And in Spanish, this is even more like, it's even like a stronger thing. Soy de, right? But we do, like, we become them. He's brilliant about highlighting how irrational we become, right? How irrational we become. Like, oh, everyone, if we don't win, they cheated. We hate the ref. I am like, literally, I have a whole episode called Where Are the Knives? Because I'm very rational before and after, and I'm able to recognize a lot of the stuff that we shouldn't be doing, right? But during, don't talk to me. Do not talk to me about refs. I will say stuff that if I say on this podcast, I will get canceled permanently. Okay, about refs. So trust me. It's like you leave your body. Just like Carnival, which is in its inception, since it was Saturnalias, okay, in ancient Greek and Roman times, was a flipping of the narrative. It's like during Carnival, anything goes. Well, this is the same thing. During this mass, during this religious event that is the game, anything goes. We're able to, it's like the purge. We're able to just like be as violent, we just turn into like a different character of ourselves at this stadium. It's also really interesting because I use this vignette to write about, I forget what I wrote this for, actually, where it's published, but to write about when the beginning of the pandemic happened and they started to come back to play and they were playing without fans and how creepy that was. I wrote about it And I use this, like, pieces of this vignette to talk about the importance of the fan to the game, right? Without the fan, it's nothing. And without the noise, I know we all remember, like, what it was like. It was like creepy silence, right? In these empty stadiums. And I used a lot of this vignette as, like, kind of like quotes and things to make those connections, because literally the fan is crucial. Without the fan, what do you have, right? It's a whole philosophical debate. So it's so good. It's so good. Vamos a leerlo en español. El hincha. El hincha. Una vez por semana, el hincha huye de su casa y asiste al estadio. Flamean las banderas, suenan las matracas, los cohetes, los tambores, llueven las serpientes y el papel picado. La ciudad desaparece, la rutina se olvida, solo existe el templo. En este espacio sagrado, la única religión que no tiene ateos exhibe a sus divinidades. Aunque el hincha puede contemplar el milagro más cómodamente en la pantalla de la tele, prefiere emprender la peregrinación hacia ese lugar donde puede ver en carne y hueso a sus ángeles, batiéndose a duelo contra los demonios de turno. Aquí, el hincha agita el pañuelo, traga saliva, glup, traga veneno, se come la gorra, susurra plegarias y maldiciones, y de pronto se rompe la garganta en una ovación y salta como pulga abrazando al desconocido que grita el gol a su lado. Mientras dura la misa pagana, el hincha es muchos. Con miles de devotos comparte la certeza de que somos los mejores. Todos los árbitros están vendidos. Todos los rivales son tramposos. Rara vez el hincha dice, hoy juega mi club. Más bien dice, hoy jugamos nosotros. Bien sabe este jugador, número 12, que es él quien sopla los vientos de fervor que empujan la pelota cuando ella se duerme. Como bien saben los otros 11 jugadores que jugar sin hinchada es como bailar sin música. Cuando el partido concluye, el hincha, que no se ha movido de la tribuna, celebra su victoria. ¡Qué goleada le hicimos! ¡Qué paliza le dimos! O llora su derrota. Otra vez nos estafaron, juez ladrón. Y entonces el sol se va y el hincha se va. Caen las sombras sobre el estadio que se vacía. En las gradas de cemento arden, aquí y allá, algunas hogueras de fuego fugaz, mientras se van apagando las luces y las voces. El estadio se queda solo y también el hincha regresa a su soledad. Yo que ha sido nosotros. El hincha se aleja, se dispersa, se pierde y el domingo es melancólico como un miércoles de cenizas después de la muerte de carnaval. Es tan brillante. Es tan brillante. La importancia del hincha para el deporte, ¿no? Primero, la comparación del deporte de fútbol específicamente con una religión, con el templo, con la misa, ¿ok? Con el carnaval, también es súper importante. Primeramente en Uruguay y Argentina especialmente, pero en muchos otros países también, pero es interesante porque Galeano es uruguayo y sabemos que está haciendo esta conexión a propósito. El fútbol y el carnaval son mitos nacionales, o sea, él dice, es la religión que no tiene ateos. Es la religión que no, la única religión que no tiene ateos, ¿no? No tiene ateos, porque todo el mundo es como parte de la tradición nacional, porque en los lugares donde las culturas indígenas fueron totalmente erradicadas o donde no quedó casi ninguna presencia de los mitos de la cultura, ¿no? Y de los ritos, esos lugares tuvieron que formar sus propios mitos nacionales y por eso en lugares como en Uruguay y Argentina el fútbol no es solo fútbol, realmente es como una religión. Realmente es como ir a misa, ¿no? Entonces, y esto es algo que se estudia en los espacios de fenómenos de cultura popular. Entonces es bien interesante que el lector no entiende perfectamente, no tiene que hacer, imaginarse algo, ¿no? Quizás para alguien que fuera de esos países no entiende mucho lo de la religión, pero es totalmente así. Y también la importancia del hincha al partido. Yo escribí algo y no me acuerdo dónde lo publiqué, cuando empezó la pandemia y estaban jugando todos sin público y era como súper, como daba hasta miedo, ¿no? Escuchar silencio en un partido, porque habla Galeano acá de la importancia de la hinchada. Otra vez el jugador número 12, la importancia de la hinchada y cómo puede hacer o romper, ¿no? Y también la manera en la que nosotros nos ponemos como parte de equipo. Decimos, soy de, ¿no? Soy de este equipo. Nosotros ganamos, somos como parte de eso, que también se conecta con el ídolo, ¿no? Y la manera en la que nosotros nos vemos reflejados en ese ídolo. La verdad que es brillante. Esta es una de mis viñetas favoritas. Esta y la próxima son dos de mis viñetas favoritas de este libro, porque están es tan real la manera en la que nosotros nos conectamos, nos convertimos para esas 2 horas. Los que somos racionales, eso se suspende. Lo tiramos por la ventana y somos capaces de decir cualquier cosa, ¿no? Que no diríamos racionalmente. Así que es súper, súper brillante. And the last one we'll read for today is another one of my favorites, and it goes beyond the fan. It's called The Fanatic. Okay, The Fanatic. The fanatic is a fan in a madhouse. His mania for denying all evidence finally upended whatever once passed for his mind, and the remains of the shipwreck spin about aimlessly in waters whipped by a fury that gives no quarter. The fanatic shows up at the stadium wrapped in the team flag, his face painted the colors of their beloved shirts, prickling with strident and aggressive paraphernalia. And on the way, he makes a lot of noise and a lot of fuss. He never comes alone. In the midst of the rowdy crowd, dangerous centipede, this cowed man will cow others. This frightened man becomes frightening. Cheap soccer cleats. Omnipotence on Sunday exercises the obedient life he leads the rest of the week. The bed with no desire, the job with no calling or no job at all. Liberated for a day, the fanatic has much to avenge. In an epileptic fit, he watches the game but doesn't see it. His arena is the stands. They are his battleground. The mere presence of a fan of the other side constitutes an inexcusable provocation. Good isn't violent by nature, but evil leaves it no choice. The enemy, always in the wrong, deserves a good thrashing. The fanatic cannot let his mind wander because the enemy is everywhere, even in that quiet spectator who at any moment might offer the opinion that the rival team is playing fair. Then he'll get what he deserves. So what I love about this vignette is this is an example of the classic Galeano-esque sarcasm and satire a little bit, right? Where he is saying these things as a character speaking, right? Where he's like, oh, he'll get what he deserves. Like he's taking on the persona that the fanatic becomes. The fanatic is a step above the fan, right? So now we're talking, like the crazies, the hooligans, right? And Galeano doesn't agree with that madness necessarily, because actually he was a really rational fan. But he's able to analyze it and he steps into that character so brilliantly. I also think it's amazing how he's able to capture that what being liberated as a fan on a Sunday is. Like, you live your whole week in this mundane cycle, right? Maybe you have a job, maybe you don't, you hate your job, whatever. And then now you get to like be a different person for a day. Like, I think that's so brilliant. He talks about the fury, the, like the passion, the way like we get like go into these fits, right? And again, he's not condemning this because obviously there's violence that's, that's alluded to. He's not condemning it, but he is just brilliantly analyzing that is what happens, right? That's what happens on Sundays. That is what happens. So to this person who may be rational the rest of the week, but that again, we see those connections to religion and the exorcising, right? The, the demon versus the good, the evil. It's just so good. It's so good. Galeano, like, oh my gosh, it's just so good. Bien, entonces tenemos una más por hoy. Es otra de mis favoritas y se llama El fanático. El fanático es el hincha en el manicomio. La manía de negar la evidencia ha terminado por echar a pique a la razón y a cuanta cosa se le parezca, y a la deriva navegan los restos del naufragio en estas aguas hirvientes, siempre alborotadas por la furia sin tregua. El fanático llega al estadio envuelto en la bandera del club, la cara pintada con los colores de la adornada camiseta, erizado de objetos estridentes y contundentes, y ya por el camino viene armando mucho ruido y mucho lío. Nunca viene solo. Metido en la barra brava, peligroso cien pies, el humillado se hace humillante y da miedo el miedoso. La omnipotencia del domingo conjura la vida obediente del resto de la semana. La cama sin deseo, el empleo sin vocación o el ningún empleo, liberado por un día, el fanático tiene mucho que vengar. En estado de epilepsia mira el partido, pero no lo ve. Lo suyo es la tribuna. Ahí está su campo de batalla. La sola existencia del hincha del otro club constituye una provocación inadmisible. El bien no es violento, pero el mal lo obliga. El enemigo, siempre culpable, merece que le retuerzan el pescuezo. El fanático no puede distraerse porque el enemigo acecha por todas partes. También está dentro del espectador callado, que en cualquier momento puede llegar a opinar que el rival está jugando correctamente y entonces tendrá su merecido. Es tan bueno, es otra de mis favoritas. ¿Por qué? Porque en esta viñeta de las tres es la única en la que vemos esto tan marcadamente, que es esa capacidad que tiene Galeano de entrar en ese tono sarcástico, irónico, ¿no? Satírico, que él no está, él no está poniéndose en ese lugar de fanático loco, sino que quizás él lo está criticando un poco, pero al entrar en ese personaje, que él entiende muy bien, porque de hecho él era un fanático súper racional, y acá vemos la yuxtaposición otra vez de la existencia racional, el trabajo, cómo la vida no es mundana, es aburrida, y luego nos transformamos ese domingo durante el partido, ¿no? En este fanático loco, liberado, ¿no? Y eso lo hace tan bueno, como él entra, como habla de la violencia, ¿no? Si alguien se atreve a decir algo, se viene su merecido, que no es Galeano diciendo, que él está de acuerdo con que se merezca lo que viene, sino que está como criticando esa irracionalidad en la que entramos. Es tan brillante. El fanático es un paso más allá que el hincha, ¿no? Entonces vemos la manera en la que uno se convierte y otra vez la referencia al bien, al mal, al demonio, ¿no? Otra vez siempre presente la conexión con la religión y el fútbol. Ahí, así que es súper, súper bueno el fanático. Estas tres viñetas como, wow, es brillante la obra de Galeano. Me encanta, we've done it. We have read 3 more vignettes. I like the number 3. It's a nice number, so we'll continue with that. If as we continue these Galeano episodes, check out the book. I know it's available in different places in both languages, free PDFs, but buy it from an independent bookstore if you can, if you have the means, because it'll keep it relevant. It'll keep it, it'll support these independent bookstores. And it's interesting because Galeano believed in open access because he didn't believe in keeping knowledge behind a paywall. And so using the PDFs is also fine, but it's also cool to support booksellers, right? Especially independent ones, especially leftist ones. Okay. So check those out and buy the book if you can, because it's so good. Read the whole thing. Let me know how you like it. Let me know how you like these vignettes. Give me some feedback. And we'll catch you on the next episode. Terminamos, llegamos al final. Por favor, compren el libro de Galeano si pueden. Sí está disponible en los 2 idiomas, en inglés y en español, en PDF gratis. Y Galeano creía en el acceso a los libros gratis, entonces no estamos haciendo nada mal si lo usamos. Pero está bueno apoyar especialmente a las librerías independientes y las que tienen libros interesantes, especialmente está bueno mantener esas conexiones con esas librerías también. Así que compren el libro si pueden en una librería independiente. Y me encantan estas viñetas, me encanta el número 3. Vamos a seguir cuando tengamos el próximo episodio. Déjenme saber qué opinan del libro, qué opinan de estas 3 viñetas. Y si leen más, también déjenme saber qué les parece el resto del libro. Muchas gracias y nos vemos en el próximo. And that was another episode of Real Francamente. Thank you so much for listening. I am obsessed with y'all. Please share with your like-minded friends. Follow us on socials at Real Francamente. Leave likes, comments. Follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. And leave comments, ratings, and reviews if you love us. Check out our website for more content, www.realfrancamente.com. We'll catch you on the next one. And as always, buy your football content. Y este fue otro episodio de Real Francamente. Muchas gracias por escuchar. Estoy obsesionada con ustedes. Por favor, compartan con sus amigos a los que les pueda interesar. Síganos en las redes sociales, @realfrancamente. Dejen me gusta, comentarios, síganos en Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Déjenos comentarios y calificaciones y reseñas ahí si les gusta. Visiten nuestro sitio web por más contenido, www.realfrancamente.com. Nos vemos en la próxima y como siempre, prejuicien su contenido de fútbol.